Hello everyone, I am Mili Saha. I am from Bangladesh. I am an associate professor of English at Jagannath University. Today I am going to present my research on challenges involved in transforming English pedagogies, both in rural and urban areas in the country. I hope you will enjoy it. So today my agenda include theoretical underpinning that I will discuss as the relevant theories to transformation of pedagogies, and my positional AT, why did I conduct the research, and the methodology that I used to perform the research, and the findings that I have had after conducting it, and participants' recommendations about promoting transforming English language teaching pedagogies in both rural and urban areas. So to look briefly at the theories, we can find four aspects of it: contemplative versus transformative teaching approaches. It involves dialogical education and alternative for social transformation. Also, transformation involves active learning and student-centered learning. And finally, there are collaborative learning, experiential learning, and problem-based learning. So to look at contemplative versus transformative teaching approaches, we find contemplative teaching approach in SLA is a learning philosophy that pervades knowledge with feeling of empathy, awareness, and insights through practices. So the approach aims at adding love, empathy, and wisdom to the learner's life in meaningful ways. So I found our teachers really practice this, but I just wanted to check whether they can do both of this simultaneously. Like transformative approach refers to teaching to make differences and growth in the students' objectives, creativity, and focused participation in forming individual identity constructions. Hence, transformation is an instructional result referring to a profound and long-term change in the worldview with a developmental shift. So let's see whether our teachers can make this shift or the changes. So to look at dialogical method, we see transformation involves a critical and dialogical method in learning, where teaching is not merely transferring knowledge or explaining reality or describing it. So instead, discussions, critical reflections, and praxis are fundamental rudiments to such critical pedagogy. It assumes without dialogue, there is no communication, and without communication, there can be no true education. Transformation can break down our traditional mindsets about teaching and learning because this teaching forms lively relationships about learners, teachers, and knowledge by promoting learning and individual development. So teachers mediate and organize groups of students collaborating with peers and teachers to master and construct the knowledge. Teachers also presume the conventional role of assisting students' knowledge acquisition while increasing students' individual development and approaches to learning. Then it comes about active and learner-centered learning as it involves a transformation. The two basic principles underlying transformative teaching are constructive and learner-centered learning theories. Active learning involves the students reading, writing, discussing, and engaging in the problem-solving tasks, maximizing their potential for intellectual development through engaging higher order cognitive skills that Bloom's mentioned in his taxonomies, like including analysis, evaluation, and synthesis with peer assistance. This transformation or active learning or learner-centered ensures student-centered learning, where the course instructors decide curricula and learning contents upon learner needs, aptitudes, modes, and motivations, as opposed to lecture-based teaching, one-way teaching. Teachers engage the learners in collaborative learning to increase their learning responsibilities and experiences. Finally, I have a brief look at collaborative learning, experiential learning, and problem-based learning. How do they combined with transformation? At the pedagogic level, the most frequently considered approaches include collaboration, experiential learning, and problem-based learning. So this helps learners to restructure understanding, experiencing the course content, and the solving complex problems through hands-on works and scaffolding with peer learning. So transformative teaching contrasts to the typical assimilative education of simply transmitting further information that fits into learners' previous knowledge structures. Hence, the transformation is a result of activating actions, exposing the students' limited knowledge And students articulate their assumptions, critically reflect on that, and examine alternative ideas in a group and test new perceptions. So they actively construct their knowledge with the help of teachers and peers. To look at the methodology, I choose qualitative research for the study, and the research questions involves what are the challenges that the rural school teachers confront to transform language teaching pedagogies in Bangladesh, and what are the difficulties that the urban English teachers undergo while transforming the pedagogies. So I wanted to compare between the rural teachers' problems and the urban teachers' problems. And finally, I wanted to see how do they overcome these barriers to create a meaningful, active learning environment for the language learners. So my participants were 6 teachers, 3 were coming from rural schools, and the rest of the 3 teachers were teaching at urban schools in Dhaka, the capital city of the country. And the tools that I used were semi-structured interviews. They were conducted online and recorded for further analysis. And for data analysis, I used ground theory, and the analysis was done thematically to address the research questions. So let's look at the findings. So what the first rural school teachers said, fewer than 5% of teachers, this is reality, are supposed to know about interactive teaching modes and its uses. On the other hand, the extremely low language proficiency of the rural learners is the first barrier to transformative learning practices. As the teacher says, when I allow them to work and learn in groups, they speak in Bangla, and only the good students participate in the task while others remain idle. So I use it very seldom. This is also true about teaching speaking or communications. In some cases, non-trained and non-language teachers, language proficiency also matters. So students and teachers, low language proficiency matters to transform the activities in the target language. So they tend to use the first language while they are solving the problems together. However, the policymakers or school boards never promote the necessity of speaking or listening, although the main focus is on literacy, reading and writing only. So transformation is not frequently suggested, although very recently they have asked to do it, and it is complicated to utilize interactive modes or knowledge constructions here in the small schools. So these are the problems, and it adds to the second rural teachers report, as she said that she practices communicative language teaching through a competence-based model. She says, I use group and pair works and try to ascertain learner strengths and weaknesses in the class. She uses a short composition, freehand writing, homeworks, feedbacks that are decided according to the learner's needs. But she says, I didn't know this is transforming or interactive teaching and construction. So there is a theoretical knowledge gap between practice and knowledge of the teachers. And she is also concerned with teaching the text comprising language and grammar elements provided by the National Curriculum Board, since she can allow collaborative learning sporadically. And let's see her problems. Learner initiative in choosing and constructing learning is quite impossible. As I asked her, since sometimes they cannot even solve the problem, given problem, which were done even earlier. And the classrooms have inadequate technology supplies, including audiovisuals, multimedia, and internet, to make the class less transmissive, reducing teacher stress. So multimedia is helpful to transform or make it learner-centered, but this is not available. She talks about the essentiality of training to change traditional practices to a transformational one, since most of the teachers really do not know what is transformation actually. Especially those who have not received any specialized pre-service education. Teachers need to make the learners think about lesson and share with the teacher about the problems. Precisely, they should have higher aptitude and motivation. Teachers need to be more encouraged and strategic. So that's why they need training. And the last rural school teacher participant says he has not received any training and do not know how to practice collaborative or communicative teaching techniques needed for effective language learning. He is frustrated about learner language learning aptitudes and self-learning. Criticality in these learners is absurd to him. Learners want to be taught more than learn, and they have less pressure from the school board authority that they have to make it interactive. Teachers' guides are not also provided to transform teaching. As he directly says, Teachers are lazy and often do not teach very actively and purposefully. As an education manager, closer monitoring is needed to create pressure on the teachers to ensure learner participation and social collaboration, but learners prefer collaborative language learning. So learners like it, but teachers are not aware of doing it frequently. Although the marginalized learners do not think of communication at any level, they cannot even speak standard Bangla, but teachers are neither fluent. Teachers teach only the elementary speaking items, because if they use the advanced level speaking or English, learners will not hear or they will not understand. So even though learners learn better if they are given problem solving tasks, they have very low proficiency to perform the task in English. Once again, L1 comes back. So they find it a problem. Now let's compare the rural teachers' problem with the urban teachers and what they say. So the first urban school teacher participant says teaching communicative language in a transformative way is almost impossible, even in the urban area. In the local educational context, for contextual barriers, particularly, primarily environmental issues and lack of theoretical knowledge, also insufficient class duration and time matter. So the significant most challenges are the unawareness of the theory and practices of both the school administrative bodies and the teachers, who still believe the content should be taught instead of learned. So these urban school teachers are my students, and they, as they say, they are aware about it and know, because I taught this theories to them. But this is that the policymakers or the school authorities approve an interactive or active learning process. They often complain this to me. So that's why I designed this research, which they see as wasting time and escaping teaching responsibilities. As he reports about his school principal's complaints, he said, "Ma'am, I try to transform my teaching in many ways, but I confront many difficulties, including objections and complaints from the authorities and some very demotivated learners who never participate in the given activities and like to remain inactive by listening only to the teachers. And the administration often complains about time spent for collaboration and interactions in the class. They say you should make the learners understand instead of posing the responsibilities on them. This is time consuming. Now, how will you finish your curriculum?" So these are the complaints that they need to confront every day while they are trying to transform their pedagogies and make the class communicative and interactive. So some teachers are aware and train it, like my students, but they cannot implement for these reasons. But when they practice, even partially, they get excellent outcomes. That means they believe in transforming the pedagogy. So let's look at what the second urban school teacher participant says. Says the learners with only writing, they can engage the learners with only writing activities, but not with the other skills, since it is chaotic. Once again, chaos comes. Classroom management is the main challenge in transforming teaching, because authority complains about the chaos and mass created in the interactive class. They find it loud and disturbing for the other classes. He introduces group or pair works once a month at best. So this is very rare, and administration counts it as teachers' failure to control the class. So this is a complaint, not a compliment that you are making the class interactive. So they prefer silent, as it directly said, and controlled class instead of interaction or noise. Language cannot be taught in such a strict environment, whereas the principal wants a completely taught and teacher-led class, since other subject teachers want it to be silent. So no class should be interactive as they want. But the teacher thinks using multimedia to introduce the topic and exercises can help mediate the noise problems by engaging them visually with the class and observing the learners from the backside. This can help to cover the curricula, and the soundproof room can reduce disturbances to the other courses. So as the teacher says, the class is too large to make everyone talking and using the language. It takes 4 to 5 classes to take 5 minutes presentation from each student. Hence, this is time consuming. Although I do it as classwork for continuous assessment. So large class is another problem that is coming out. Almost also teachers are awareness. Almost 60% of urban teachers believe quiet and teacher-led classrooms are the good ones. Definitely, they are not language teachers. They are non-language teachers, and it is obviously well for confirming language learning. But authority should understand the needs and theories, and policymakers should focus on teachers' power to implement the methods. As he said, once the authority is convinced, English teachers practice it. Unfortunately, authority changes every year and we need to manage them again. It is tiring and discouraging to struggle with the system repeatedly to pick a particular teaching mode. In addition, teachers have extra class loads, which are already a burden, and teaching itself is a pressure, let alone being transformative. So when teaching itself is burden and this large class, extra pressure, time constraint, so transformation is really a fancy thing to them, and once again, authorities pressure to control the class. So teachers becomes basically helpless and discouraged. And the last participants, who is also an urban school teacher, says the main barrier to transformation is the large class where it cannot make each of the 120 learners participate or perform independently in the given 50 minutes time. But it tries to make them act through warm-up activities, sessions, both individually and in a group for 10 to 15 minutes every day. As I said, but I cannot do more since the time pressure is there to finish the syllabus. But after teaching grammar elements, I give them one single task-based class to work out the problems and ask analytical or critical questions. I believe transformation happens then, but speaking activities should also be done in brutal attempts. But I'm often stuck with the large class size, learner inhibition, and time limits. So the problems are coming out once again. Decides that he's scared of being lagged with the curriculum and warned by the administration about being unable to control the class to teach in a transformative style. But that the school doesn't provide enough technological resources such as multimedia to find alternative interactions between learner and content, or learners attempt to understand the content themselves. So he says that this is not a financial issue. Instead, it is managerial decisions which stop or slow down technical access to the teachers. They are neither aware nor informed about the benefits of technology and transformation. Senior teachers contributing to decision making are too callous regarding upgrading teaching or learning since they were not habituated with it. So there is a generation gap, knowledge gap, and awareness gap among the administration or the senior teachers and the currently trained junior teachers. So my participants have some specific recommendations regarding improving the situation that can encourage them to transform the pedagogies both in rural and urban areas. As I start with, adding instructions about transforming pedagogies and suggested strategies into the curricula. EFL curricula or even teacher education curricula can improve and change the situations by awakening the policymakers and the student the school authorities. Secondly, this is updating the curricula with more practical language items. Not only on literacy that just stuck them with the grammar and language elements and practice. And discarding additional grammar and literacy lessons could reduce private school teachers' stress and facilitate transformative teaching like speaking and listening and the other things that creative writing. So public school teachers enjoying little pressure with completing curriculum content should be informed about the current TLT practices and encouraged to transfer the new learning. So those who are really having pressure, they need to be encouraged to practice that flexible transformation inside the classroom. And definitely policymakers and the school authorities have that responsibilities. And fourthly, this says incorporating transformation theories into pre and in-service teacher education will help by informing the benefits, challenges, and operation, which will ensure implementation of this pedagogy by the instructors. So definitely the theories and the awareness should be there in both pre and in-service teacher training that can raise a mass awareness among all the stakeholders in education. And fifthly, demonstrating, one of the participants says, demonstrating the lessons on multimedia helps them to understand the topics by themselves. And there is an interaction between the content and the learners, while lectures are often one way. Hence, ensuring technology can be a way of promoting transformation. Now, this is reality. And we definitely experience this in every class. Finally, this is appointing young, trained, and technology-oriented administrators, heads, or principals would reassure the teachers with the technology access and provide necessary supports in up-to-date pedagogic practices. So this is really a new findings that those who are the decision makers and authorities, they should also be trained. If they're not trained, we have to pick those who are trained. And Finally, I do have a very clear finding, and to look at the bottom line conclusion. The findings demonstrate difference between the challenges involved in transforming English language pedagogies in Bangladesh's rural and urban areas. While we see the rural teachers enjoy the power to practice dialogic and interactive teaching, although they lack training and awareness about the pedagogy. On the other hand, the urban teachers enact agencies despite the authorial body's control and pressure. So I suggest a good balance between these two, that teachers should have both agency and power to implement transformation and to teach the language flexibly without much control or much strictness. And these are the references that I used for my researches. Thank you everyone for listening to me. And if you have any questions, you can contact me via the following email address. And this is vilisahadol@gmail.com. So that's all from me today. And thank you once again for hearing me.